Yo, 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 what's up? It's been a long time since I've made any content. Um, been pretty busy lately. Um, busy doing nothing exciting. Uh, Generally, I've got some exciting stuff going on with music and whatnot, but I've had none of that lately. It's been just really boring, trudging kind of work that I do at my job, which I won't really get into the details of because it's just so miserable that I don't think anybody wants to hear about it. But on the musical front, it's been pretty dead. Deep Tank is now in hiatus. Um, Things just kind of hit a point to where I think money wise it just didn't make sense to keep renting the room that we were at. We had a really nice room over at House of Hits in Sacramento, and it was cool. We shared that room with Ned's band. I'm trying to think of the name of it now. Watt Avenue Soul Giants. Really good band. Really great guys. Cool guys. I was in a band with Ned at one time. Ned Hamad. And we were called the Giant Killers, and now he's doing the Watt Avenue Soul Giants, which is funny because when we were the Giant Killers, we had a song called Watt Avenue Eyeball, which was about a tweaker. And go figure. Um, but we had to stop playing mainly because, well, let's just face it. Greg had joined two other bands, and so his attention was significantly divided, and he was paying rent in two other places, and our place was the largest portion of what he was paying. And so with gas prices going up and everything, he decided that he no longer wanted to spend, the amount of money he was spending in our room, because it was a larger share, and so he was cutting that expense basically. But I mean, in my opinion, I think he cut the wrong band. But just like in earlier times, and I've said it before, you can't make other people stay. And I can recall many times in my life that I've wanted people to stay and they've chosen to leave, not just in bands, by the way, but in other ways as well. So music has been on the back burner. I haven't been playing my guitar, unfortunately. One thing I did this morning after I got home from work was I actually took some songs off of my Zoom that I had recorded, my video Zoom. I have a couple of, I've got three different Zooms that I use. I've got a little handheld one that's kind of a little crappy little plastic one that'll shatter if you drop it. And that one, you're not able to really record at high volume. And maybe I'm just not operating it properly, but even when you turn the gain all the way down, it still manages, like loud noise and a loud sound still maxes out the level on it. And so when the band is playing, even when it's turned all the way down, it still distorts and sounds terrible. And I've tried all these different things, like covering it up and putting, like wrapping my hoodie around it. It already has a little windscreen on it, but it just sounds muffled when you do that. So it's no good, and it still distorts for some reason. So that little handheld Zoom, I only use that for like recording riffs. I'll set that thing down, and I'll like plunk out, a new idea on the guitar. So it's kind of like I use it as like a little dictaphone, and um, it works pretty well for that. And then I have another one that's like a higher end Zoom. That's like a 6-track. That you could. It's got all these different options for plugging in. It has like a microphone input attachment to it, so you can just plug the room mic attachment in there, or you can have an attachment that's just XLR inputs. And there's different kinds, and there's different kinds of microphone setups for it. And so that one you can actually accurately adjust the input level on it, and so we would use that for our rehearsals. Once I got to a point to where I was no longer willing to set up my Pro Tools every time, that we did a rehearsal. I was like recording all our rehearsals on Pro Tools. That way, if I wanted to, I could go back and add things to it and whatnot. But it turns out that I wasn't really using it for that. And so, I got this little handheld Zoom, that I bought with one of my stimulus checks that came in. I didn't really need the cash at that time, so I just put it into music equipment. And then I have a video Zoom, and I might actually start using that for some of these, some of these live stream type things. And this one's not live. I don't even know if I'm ever going to really stream live. I may do it at some point, but maybe after I've kind of gotten my rhythm down a little bit, and I'm a little out of practice with this kind of thing, and I have a tendency to ramble. And so maybe live streaming is not for me unless I'm going to make it like 6 hours, and probably by the time it's done, nobody's going to be listening to it anymore. So for me, it's probably a little easier just to like record and then make some clips, edit them together. That's a little bit time consuming, so we'll see how it goes. I'll try different things. But what I did want to start getting back into, putting together whatever you want to call it, a podcast or just a program, or just kind of getting on here and bullshitting a little bit. And I told myself I wasn't going to swear. Hopefully I don't get banned for this stuff, man. But, there's a couple of things I did want to talk about, and that was, the band and how it's kind of on hiatus. And I feel terrible about this because I just got all these t-shirts made, and so I want to sell these shirts. So I really want to play some shows. And so if you want to buy some shirts, got a lot of shirts, a lot of real nice ones. And so maybe at some point I'll model some of them for you. Right now I've just got my work shirt on, and my background, I don't know if you can see it. I've got the painted version of the album cover on the wall. But I'm not even really listening to music. It's kind of strange. Music is such a huge part of my life, and lately it's just been work. 7 days a week, 365 days a year I'm working, and it's still not enough. I'm a wage slave. I'm in the world of low wages and high gas prices right now, and it's really hard to make ends meet. And whatever money I do have left over, I put into crypto, which it's funny because I've posted a little bit about my new foray into crypto on Facebook, and I've gotten some pretty interesting responses on that. And the main response that I've gotten is most people seem to think it's really stupid. I think that crypto at this point doesn't really have a whole lot of adoption, and I think what little adoption it has, I think, is really misunderstood. I have been fortunate enough to follow some really good influencers in the crypto sphere, and I think that probably anybody who's into crypto would probably say that about their chosen influencers that they go to, but mine are particularly good, and gosh, I didn't know if I wanted to really even talk about them in particular, but these crypto mindset guys are really good. What do they call them? The Moon Gang, Charlie and Miguel. These guys, shout out to those guys, man. These guys are actually helping people. 99% of the crypto content that I've seen, and I've seen a lot on YouTube, is just people just shilling bullshit, really. You know, people just they're talking their bags, and most of them seem really dishonest, kind of used car salesman types. And these guys are the only group of guys. It's really mainly two guys, but there's a few other guys that they kind of funnel in, and they'll interview other people, and they've got a very strong community, and their community is very supportive and very knowledgeable. And these guys, they really share a lot of knowledge. They have an online course that they do, and I took the course, and they do it every quarter, and I took it for quarter one of this year, and it was great. It was really great. There was so much information that I'm actually still going through all the video content that they made, and you know, I'm such a geek. I edit this stuff down. Like, I take the video content, I compile it, I make audio MP3s of it in addition to, you know, copying the video, and I would put it on my iPod. I still have an iPod, and I'll listen to it at work. So I'm at work for hours and hours and hours, completely unsupervised, and I'll just listen to all this stuff. So for, like, you know, for hours every night, I've been listening to a lot of this content. And so yeah, with all the crypto stuff, I'm becoming quite knowledgeable about a lot of it, but I don't have a lot of money to invest in it, so I'm not very far invested. I've only invested a little bit, and I'd like to say that I'm slow to invest the money. It's really just that I don't have the money. If I had more money, I would just ape into that shit. But for now, I'm just kind of, you know, putting money in where I can, and it's not a lot, and it's pretty basic. I'm not doing anything totally degenerate yet, although I have made a couple of degenerate moves, but I find that I end up having to take a lot of money out, and so I put in a little bit more than I can afford, and then I end up having to take some out, and I'm trying to find my balance there. So I've been listening to a lot of podcasts and a lot of live streams, and I've always, you know, I get into the political content, and one guy in particular I've found that he's not a political guy so much. He's into, like, geopolitics and, like, conspiracy theories and literature and history. I know when you say conspiracy theories, people automatically, like, shut off with that. But he's into good conspiracy theories. He's into, like, the ones that are probably more real than some of the stuff that's out there. And what he does, this guy's name is Jay Dyer. He's a really, really great guy. And I don't agree with all of his content. There's some of it, he gets into religion a lot, and I don't really back his religious stuff so much. But he does a lot of debates, and his debates are okay. It's a little bit boring. But what I really like what he does is he gets into, like, geopolitics and espionage and like the global elite kind of stuff, and he ties it in with Hollywood and with movies, and how like Hollywood uses a lot of, like, social programming that's sort of in line with the agenda of the elite, the global elite class that's been around. You know, there's sort of an inheritance that's gone on for the last 100 years and 150 years, and it goes all the way back to, like, H.G. Wells and Bertrand Russell and a lot of these older writers and then it's just kind of as it's moved forward in time, more other writers have kind of added to this sort of body of work, which is sort of a movement that's gone on for a really long time. And I don't want to get too much into it. I get really far out in the weeds, and I'm going to stop making sense really quick. So I'll just kind of end that there. But Jay Dyer is really awesome dude that I've been listening to. So I've been listening to Jay Dyer. I'm not going to talk about really a lot of the like American political stuff that I listen to, because we don't want to get into all that. I get into political debates on social media, and it just gets me into trouble. So I just rather not talk about that. And then I've been listening to a little bit of music, not so much. Let's see, what have I been listening to? Been listening to Steve Vai. Steve Vai has always been a huge influence. I play his guitars and stuff. I like those Ibanez. They're great guitars. What's funny is about the Ibanez is when you pick up an Ibanez that has a handle cut into it, and it looks like something Steve Vai would play, people expect you to start shredding like Steve Vai. And anytime you've got a video that's like like a demonstration video, or what do you call those, like video reviews on guitars, and they've got the Ibanez, they've always got usually some fat guy with a baseball cap shredding some Steve Vai licks on a gem. You never see like someone like Kurt Cobain playing on a gem. Stone Temple Pilots never used a gem. In fact, I've never seen anybody who's a professional other than Steve Vai using a gem, except for maybe those guys from Korn. They use they use the Universe, the 7-string. But I've never really seen anybody else use those guitars, and they're great guitars. So I have 2 of them actually, and yeah, they're really good. I actually have a Universe too, so we got 3. I've got the 7-string Universe, and I've got 2 gems. I've got the Seafoam Green Gem Premium, which is a cheaper one, which is my favorite one, and then I've got the really expensive Loch Ness Green Gem 777, which is really expensive, but I don't like it as much. And I actually wouldn't mind getting the new one, the Pia. I like the white one, and I like the green one. I like the gold one. But yeah, I'm going to have to do a lot better in crypto before I get something like that, because I don't have any money. No more guitars for me, especially now that I'm not doing the band. So hopefully the band thing will pick up again. Greg said he's open to doing it again at a later time. He's just kind of taking a break from music, I think. He's still doing the other 2 bands, but we'll see. But so I've been listening to some Steve Vai, getting my Vai on, The funny thing about Steve Vai is, I love his music, I love his guitar playing, but some of it's really cheesy. And compared to like most of the stuff that I like, there's an element of cheese to Steve Vai, but some of it is just absolutely 100% brilliant. And of course, he's amazing. Everybody knows he's amazing. But there's some songs that just border on just the cheesiest of the cheese. And it's like when those songs come on, I just have to laugh. But I listen to him anyway. And then when he sings, it's a little bit painful. But yeah, people have said the same thing about me, so I won't judge. Kirk Hammett's new EP is one that I've listened to a couple of times. I listened to it twice. I listened to the new Kirk Hammett EP. What's the name of it? I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. I'll try to call up YouTube here and see if I can find some of this stuff. What's the new Kirk Hammett EP? What would I say about that? I like it. I'll say that. I do like it. I'm not going to be one of those guys that slams Kirk Hammett. Everybody wants to slam Kirk Hammett for some reason. I think Kirk Hammett's great. I've been listening to him my whole life. He's been an influence on me since I was about 12 years old. 11 years old, maybe. But once I started playing guitar and started learning songs, once I got to be about 12, I was learning all of his solos. And I think he's great. I don't care what anybody says. You know, he can wah it up on that wah-wah pedal, and I don't mind. He can play those pentatonic scales to the end of time, and I am cool with it. And nobody ever gives Jimi Hendrix a hard time for playing pentatonic scales, but for some reason Kirk Hammett does it, and it's just terrible. Okay, so what's his album called? It's an EP, and it's called Portals. And what I would say about Portals is that it's very cinematic. It doesn't disappoint in the regard that it incorporates that sort of Lovecraftian kind of vibe. Like, it sounds like it could be the soundtrack to like an H.P. Lovecraft movie. Or I don't think there are any H.P. Lovecraft movies, but if there was one, I think that Kirk Hammett's new EP Portals would be a great soundtrack to it. And so it also has a little bit of Kirk Hammett's kind of Bela Lugosi vibe that he has. You know how he's got all those guitars with like pictures of like Frankenstein's monster and Dracula and all that stuff, and he's always been this kind of like horror movie fanatic, you know, and he has all these weird toys and stuff. And so everything that like Kirk Hammett is kind of about, with all his toys and his classic horror movies and his cinematic Lovecraftian thing, it's all on the album. And I think that he should have made it a little bit longer. And obviously, he put a lot of money into it because it's got all this orchestration. And then there's a little bit of that southwestern vibe, that kind of spaghetti western sound that I always attributed to James Hetfield more than Kirk Hammett. But, you know, like the intro to Battery and The Unforgiven and songs like that have that, you know, you can almost imagine Clint Eastwood riding up on a horse or something, you know, during these vignettes. And he's got a lot of that. So I do like that. Another album I listened to the other night was the new Red Hot Chili Peppers. And the first song I heard off that album, I really did not like. You might know what I'm talking about. It's the very first single that was released off of it. And what it sounds like is Anthony Kiedis kind of like yodeling this sort of like Irish sounding. I mean, it sounds like he's trying to do an impression of Dave Matthews. Or maybe Alanis Morissette, who I always felt was the female version of Dave Matthews. But I just really did not like that song. However, there's like 20 songs on the album, and if you listen to it all the way through, it's actually a very good album. There's a lot there. There's a lot to it. And I thought it was really good. I thought it kind of was a little bit of a return to form for them, back to their kind of funk roots. And Flea's bass sounds great. The drums are okay. The drums don't slam as hard as, like, you know, the Blood Sugar Sex Magic album, obviously. I don't think they could ever top that album. Excuse me. I don't think they could ever top that album. But I like the album. I like the guitar. I think I'm glad that John Frusciante rejoined the band. And I look forward to listening to it a little further and enjoying that album a little bit more. So what else? What else have I been doing? Okay. I don't think I've been listening to much else. About 4 months ago, before I got into the crypto thing, I started listening to a lot of bass guitar. I was listening to Les Claypool a lot, and like a lot of his kind of more abstruse kind of stuff that he was doing. His solo albums, not so much the Primus stuff, but to me it all sounds like Primus. I mean, everything he does to me sounds like Primus. But aside from music, I've been reading a lot. That's another thing I've been doing to occupy my time. And I've read a grip of books. Actually, what I've got going is I've got a queue of about 30 books. And I'll read like maybe 30 pages of a book, and then, if that, and then I'll move on to another book. And so, typically what most people do, and what I've been doing for 30 years is, or more than that, 35 years, is I've been just reading a book all the way through, cover to cover. And, that works out pretty good. I think that's how most people read, front cover to back cover, right? You wouldn't want to start at the back cover and move to the front cover. That would be probably really stupid, but I've been doing this kind of 30 pages and then move on to another book, and I've got like 30 books, and I've been cycling through all these books, and what I've found is that my mindset doesn't get too stuck on one book or one author or just one track. And I think that that's what happens when you read, when you're just reading one book. Sometimes you could be reading a book for weeks or months even, depending on how fast you read or how often you read. Some people only read on the toilet. And I do that. I'll admit, I read on the toilet. I'm a toilet reader. Some people think that's weird, but I think it's weird not to do it. I mean, honestly, in my opinion, if you don't read when you're on the toilet, you're like wasting your life. Because you've got all that time. If you were to like add up all the hours you spend on the toilet, your whole life, that's a lot of hours. I would imagine you've got many, many hours on the toilet. Enough to basically form a career on. I mean, like if you were to take all that time that you spend taking a shit and were to apply that to a skill set, after years and years and years, you should be able to earn a living off of that skill set. And so never let an opportunity go to waste. If you're on the toilet, read a damn book, so I do. Sometimes I'll hold it in trying to find a book, so I've got books lying around just in case. And so yeah, I like to read. And what have I been reading? Well, I just read Animal Farm, which is funny. A little slim book. It's almost like people think of it as like a children's book. It's only about 100 and something pages, and it's real easy to read. For some reason, I never read that one all the way through when I was younger. That's one of the ones that are required for or that used to be required for high school. I doubt the high school would want you to read it today. You got the pigs running the schools now, so yeah, that's a book that they probably don't require. They probably require some other useless books now. But I know I really liked Animal Farm. I thought it was cool. I actually read it with my son. Like every chapter that I read, I made him read the chapter too, and then he and I would discuss it. And he didn't particularly enjoy all these discussions because they would run pretty long. But I would explain to him what everything meant, when it came to the political allegory involved. And I'm gonna check my video here real quick. Okay, it's still going. Well, wouldn't you know it, as soon as I went to check my video and I thought it was going, it shut itself off. So never let a moment go to waste. So yeah, Animal Farm, I liked it. Another book that I have been reading is Treasure Island. Now, when I was 9 years old, my dad made me read Treasure Island. And I tried to read it. I actually opened the book and scanned every line for like 100 pages. And I got really excited because I was reading. I knew how to read, but I'd never read a book. I knew how to read, Mad Magazine and comic books and stuff. I had to read Heathcliff. But this was the first time I'd really tried to read a book. Maybe I had read a little bit before that. I think that I had tried to read The Hobbit and like Donald F. Gluck's Empire Strikes Back novelization. But even those two books, I was 9 years old. Some people when they're 9, I remember when my brother was 9, he was reading like the Sword of Shannara and shit like that, and like just really getting into fantasy novels. But anyway, when I went to go read Treasure Island, I read about 150 pages of it and did not even understand or remember or comprehend or retain like one detail of it. I did not even know what I had read. I didn't know what reading was. I was just scanning the words, and none of it took. And I didn't realize it until my dad tried to quiz me on it. Like I was really excited. I was like, Dad, I read 150 pages of Treasure Island. And he asked me some questions, and I couldn't answer one of them. And I just remember he sighed, and that sigh must have like traumatized me or something, because for years after that, even when I was like 22 years old, I remember trying to pick up that book and I'm like, I'm going to read Treasure Island. I'm going to go back and read it. And I just could not get into it. I mean, by then I had already read, Carl Jung, and, I'd read probably like 20 some odd Stephen King books and Philip K. Dick, and by the time I was in my 20s, I had read hundreds of books, and for some reason I just couldn't read Treasure Island because I just always remembered how hard it was to get into when I was 9 years old. But my point is that my son actually is a pretty good reader, and so he read Animal Farm with me, and he kept up with me, and he read the whole thing, and that's great. So I finally started reading Treasure Island again. I actually really enjoy it now, and so it's cool. It's good to read Treasure Island and enjoy it. In my 40s, it's good to be able to do that. It is kind of a children's book. In a way. Not by today's standards so much. I think now it's like an old fogey's book, but I got it at this local library that I sort of. Do you join a library? I joined the library. I got a library card, but it seems like it's like a student library. It's like a local student library, and it's got like a sports center attached to it. So it's mainly for students. And so, the downstairs area is all kids' books, and then you go upstairs, and there's there's the adult books, but it's not a great variety. It's not a very big library. So I spend a lot of time in the children's section picking out books for my kids, and I end up getting a lot of kids' books for myself to read. And one of them, I got like the Diary of Anne Frank, and like the Narnia books, and what else? There's a lot of like history books that are really good, and like even geography books. There's books about everything. There's books about science, and so I've been getting like kids books, and it's been kind of cool. I got a kids book about Mussolini. Imagine that. And so Treasure Island. I got Treasure Island with the Wycliffe illustrations. It's great. It's an awesome book. I'm really enjoying it now. Finally. I imagine there's a movie out there of it. I'll watch the movie after I've read the book. What was that other? Oh, another book I've been reading. This one's a grown-up book. Uh, Fyodor Dostoevsky's The Possessed. It's great, a really great book. It's kind of scary in a way because it's one of those books that was sort of in its time sort of a prophetic book that was it sort of foreshadowed the like the Soviet or the communist revolution. It's basically about these socialists that basically turn this town upside down, and it has to be read to be appreciated. But I would recommend for anybody who's interested in socialism and where it started to read Dostoevsky's The Possessed. It's also called Demons. It has there's different versions of it. Basically, there's two titles for it. The Russian title has been translated as The Possessed or as Demons, and you figure out why once you read the book. Without going too much into the political ramifications of it. Another one I've been reading is Alexander Solzhenitsyn's Gulag Archipelago, but this one is a condensed version, so it's not the 3-volume. There's like 3,000 pages there to read. So this is a condensed version in 1 volume, and I've been reading that. I actually have the longer versions in an audio format, and I've listened to a lot of that. And so it's really good. Actually, I followed this prescription from Jordan Peterson to first read The Possessed, and then from there to move on to the Gulag Archipelago, which is the sort of end result of all of that. So what else? Brave New World is one I've been reading. Almost done with that one. What else? Stranger in a Strange Land, which is kind of interesting. I was reading 2 years ago during 2020. I read that book Chaos about Charles Manson and his affiliation with the CIA, and how they had sort of groomed him while he was in prison. And this book is crazy. It's all. There's a lot of documentation to back it up, to back up the claims in the book. It's really interesting. I suggest anybody that's interested in the whole Manson phenomenon to read Chaos. What's the guy's name? Can never remember these authors' names. Anyway, just Google Charles Manson Chaos, and this book is really interesting. But one of the things that was mentioned in the book is that Charles Manson was really into the book Stranger in a Strange Land by Robert Heinlein. And I was, I couldn't imagine, I'm wondering why Charles Manson would really be into this science fiction book. And so I started reading that one just out of curiosity. I didn't get very far. So, at this point, I'm not very far into the book. I'm only a couple chapters into it, so I won't really get too much into that one. I've been reading this book called Investments by Herbert Mayo. This one right here. This is a very heavy book. You could, if I was going to start working out, I think I would use this book. You could bench press, this book. It's a very heavy book, and it was about $9.99 from Half Price Books, and of course it's a little bit outdated. There's nothing about crypto in there whatsoever. There's books on crypto, but I get most of my crypto information from YouTube. And so I've been reading this book, and it basically talks about asset classes in general, and different kinds of investments, and different kinds of banks, and how business works in that way. And it's just really interesting. It's a college textbook. everything you need to know about investments. This other book I've been reading, I'm going to call this up real quick because I couldn't remember the author's name. It's called Dynamic Trading, and it was recommended to me by, not personally, but by Charlie from Cultivate Crypto. Hold on, Dynamic Trading. It was a book that he had recommended for anybody who's into trading and technical analysis. Oh, Robert Miner is the guy's name, and I have a downloaded PDF version of the book because, well, the hard copy of the book cost about $300, and I didn't want to spend all that, so I got the PDF version. But it's a really cheap, crappy like retype, and it's just chock full of typos. So it's a little bit annoying to it's distracting to read it because there's so many typos. I basically have to translate it as I'm going on from the gibberish that it appears to be. And then another book I've been reading that I'm really enjoying is this book of it's an anthology of short horror stories by Thomas Ligotti, and it's called Grimscribe. Or no, I'm sorry. It's two anthologies put together, Songs of a Dead Dreamer and Grimscribe, in one volume. And it's a book of short stories, and it's like this guy was big in the 90s, and I never knew about him in the 90s until my friend Rob brought this trade paperback version of his book called The Nightmare Factory and loaned it to me. And I read a few stories. There was a story, I remember the first one I read was called The Gas Station Carnivals. And I read it because I liked the title of the story. And it was a really cool story. And there was a story called Nethyscurial, which was, speaking of Lovecraft, had a lot of, Lovecraftian elements. So his stuff is sort of a cross between like H.P. Lovecraft and Edgar Allan Poe. And it's kind of psychological horror. As far as the time setting, it's almost like this indeterminate time. Like it could have been 100 years ago and it could be 100 years from now. And I like books like that are kind of like eternal in a way. They don't really let you know when it is. And I had that experience when I read, what's his name, J.M. Coetzee, the South African guy who wrote Waiting for the Barbarians. That was another book that was sort of like a timeless book. When you read it, you don't know if it was colonial times or if it's present day. It was really hard to determine when the book took place. And another funny little anecdote about this guy Thomas Ligotti, who wrote Songs of a Dead Dreamer. When my friend Rob had his copy of The Nightmare Factory, he took it on the plane with him. He had taken a flight down to San Diego or something and was at the airport, and he was in the bar at the airport having a beer, and he was like sitting there reading this book, this big clunky book, and this guy comes up and sits next to him. He's like, "Hey buddy, what you reading?" And he looked at the guy and he saw something that'll scare the shit out of you. So if you know my friend Rob, it's so him, man. It's you just got to know the guy. But I was just trying to picture this guy's reaction to him. Like he's probably like, oh, I'll leave this guy alone. But hopefully he took a note on what the book was and who wrote it, and maybe try to find his own copy. I doubt he would want to spend the money, because that book, The Nightmare Factory, I've tried to find it online and it's like $87. So luckily I was able to get the Songs of a Dead Dreamer and Grimscribe in one volume for like $10 on Amazon. But yeah, The Nightmare Factory is a little harder to come by. I think that there's a graphic novel version of it, but the original anthology in itself, which really has like most of his short stories. It's a huge book. But anyway, that's all. I just want to talk about those things and talk about what I've been doing. I know it kind of started on a downer, but you know, sometimes life kind of sucks when you're not playing music. You know, and I hope to pick it up again soon. I hope to work on the album again soon. I just haven't had a chance to do it. I have a roommate now. I'm not able to record at home. I don't have a room to record in, so hopefully soon I'll find an opportunity to pick it back up and work on the new album again. But until then, I don't know. I'm going to make another video again soon. I'm going to start doing this a little bit more often. Hopefully I get a little bit better at it, because you know, this is one of those things that it takes practice, you know, speaking. You know, I've been working alone for months now, and my social activity is limited, and I haven't been streaming any kind of content or anything like that, and so I got to kind of brush off the cobwebs a little bit and get back into this. But anyway, I hope to post something again soon, so see you later.